Hello, it's Nikki and welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad so many of you are loving the interviews and thank you so much for sharing, rating and reviewing. I so appreciate it. Anyway, I wanted to continue the conversation of success. So often we hear the extremes, don't we, of rags to riches, homeless to billionaire, sleeping on a random sofa to a blinged up palace. But what about the in-between bits? I know personally I have had many. How do you get from A to Z? But also, how do you get from A to B or F to M? In these mini episodes, I want to provide questions to ponder, ideas that might spark a brainstorm, or raise topics that might be a little bit uncomfortable in the moment, but they will support you to go to the next level of your business. As always, please come over to social media at Nikki Raby, and I'd love to hear your thoughts and breakthroughs. Hello, it's Nikki. Today I'm talking about money. I know so many of you will have already seen the title and maybe avoided it at first. Maybe you didn't want to listen to this one. Maybe you automatically thought it wasn't going to be for you. It is for you. It is exactly for you, especially if you find this topic quite triggering, or you believe that you're not great with money, or there's never enough, or you feel that there's a bit of a blockage perhaps with money. I'm saying this because I felt this a little bit myself. As a creative person who was the only creative person in her family, I've definitely had to learn some hard lessons along the way. You know, those lessons where you didn't realise that everybody was getting paid apart from you, or you didn't negotiate hard enough, or you ended up being out of pocket because somebody convinced you that this was going to be a great thing, but nothing ever came from it. I'm not here to moan. I'm not here to be a victim. What I want to start by saying is I hear you. I understand. And I'm not a financial advisor or an accountant. I want to flag that from the beginning as well. But I just want to help you to really take your business to the next level. And I'm going to be talking about it in terms of mindset as well, rather than saying, okay, you need to shift this money into this account or do X, Y, and Z. I'm not qualified, nor do I know enough about those types of things to certainly be sharing the information as an expert. But I can help you from a coaching perspective as well. So today I'm going to be sharing 10 things that will be 10 little steps that you can take to really start to move your year to the place where you feel really good at the end of the year. The first point that I want to make is that it's January. I'm recording this on the 28th of January, and I know that January has been such a long month for so many people. There's such pressure, isn't there, before Christmas to be buying all the things. Maybe in your industry, there's not as much work in December, or people wait till January and then they think that they're going to have the money to do something. And in the end, something else comes in. Also, the tax deadline is there on the 31st of December, 31st of January rather. Don't worry, you haven't missed it if you're listening to this. It's the 31st of January. And it can be quite a tricky time of year. Also as well, I want to say that this time last year, I was in a really weird position financially. Now, at the time, I didn't talk about it because I felt that I just needed to be in it and work through it and figure it out. And likewise, if you ever follow me on Instagram, please know that often when I'm sharing the lessons or the things that I've learned, I've usually dealt with them and worked through them, and then I'm kind of sharing them. I'm not the sort of person that really sort of airs her dirty washing whilst I'm going through it and having ugly cries on Instagram. It's just kind of not the way that I process things. But back in October 2017, I had some fraud activity on my account. And there were 4 payments that were made, and they were huge sums of money. And it got to the point where a letter was sent from my bank and I didn't receive it because then it was around Christmas time and they put the money back in and then they took it out again. And oh my goodness, it got to the point just before Christmas of 2017, I couldn't actually take any money out of my bank account. And it was the weirdest experience. Somebody who's worked hard all their life, somebody who had got to the end of their year and had a successful year in business, have done lots of things and felt excited about going forward. I felt like I'd really been stung, and I felt like I was being punished in some way. And I took it really personally, which I really shouldn't, because I'm sure when the person or the people who were doing the fraudulent activity, they weren't thinking about this personally. They were thinking about their own agenda in that way. And it was just a really sort of startling experience. It was very eye-opening. It was very odd to be in that position of feeling completely vulnerable, feeling like you had to spend so many hours and time on the phone to people, every time having to repeat the story, trying to get through to the right person. And it was really quite distressing. Anyway, it all sorted itself out in the end eventually, but it did leave me feeling like I'd just been winded slightly. So I started the year last year going, phew, all right, pick yourself up slowly. And it took a bit of a while to get going, actually, and get things moving and shaking again. I felt quite vulnerable and I felt quite skeptical about things. And I just felt that I wasn't necessarily as trusting. So I kind of gritted my teeth, hung on tight and just sort of hoped for the best. And then slowly, as I relaxed into the year, as I started to get my mojo back, things began to ease again. Now, the first lesson that I want to share from this experience is check your bank account. Check your bank account each and every day. This is something I never ever used to do. But at the time of the fraud, I had been checking my bank account for about a year previous to this. So I had a good idea of what was going in, what was going out, what was basically happening. And that's how I caught it so quickly. So I was able to log in and I was like, hang about, what is this? Who's this person? I was able to get onto the bank immediately and be able to have some sort of control. In the end, the whole process did take a lot longer in the end, but I just think, my goodness, what would have happened if I'd waited another week or so before checking it and realizing it. So one thing that I want to say, and I know that sometimes we can all get busy as well, and sometimes checking your bank account can be quite triggering and being faced with figures, but please, for your own safety and your peace of mind, know what is going in and out. And I know sometimes there's this temptation to say, oh, my husband looks after that, or my wife looks after that, or my partner, or I'm not good with numbers. I want you to just get started on being really good with the very basics. I don't want you to get caught out like so many people do. The second lesson I want to share is I can choose, I guess, and so can you. You can choose to get involved in talk that serves you or doesn't serve you. So as soon as people around a table start saying how expensive things are, or how skint they are, or how the prices are going to rise, and all this sort of scaremongering, and I know a lot of it is based on truth. I know that things are changing. I know that we're in quite an unpredictable time. That discussion, that conversation doesn't help me to feel empowered, because basically I know that I need to move my business forward. I know that I need to bring in income. So I really have to decide how I play and how I negotiate those times, which moves on to point number 3, which is I make sure I manage my surroundings. So for me, I know what my values are. I know what's important to me. I know how I like to make money, and what kind of really annoys me when people make money. You know, the people that just like create awful journalism and spread rumours, or you probably know who I'm talking about, but there's one particular, I don't know if I would call her a journalist, but there's a lady who's very controversial. And she always is spreading rumours or adding fuel to the fire, and that is kind of how she makes her money. And so for me, when I'm thinking consciously, especially about building, especially about going forward, I manage my own surroundings. And that goes as far as making sure that I'm aware of what groups I'm in, say on Facebook, or what stories I'm listening to, all of that sort of thing. You as well have control on this. Number 4, I want you to create space to receive. Now, especially when we're starting out in business, sometimes we feel like we'll add the systems in later. We'll invest in the software when we have more money coming in. Now, the processes and the systems that you have don't have to be expensive. They can simply be an Excel spreadsheet or some sort of branded invoice or a folder system, whatever works for you. And do talk to your accountant about this as well. But making sure that you are actually open for business. This is a serious thing. It's not just somebody handing you over 50 quid and going, yeah, or we'll just do like a deal, yeah? You'll do my social media and I'll give you a bit of coaching. I want to see you seeing yourself as a business and creating that space to receive. So I do all of my banking online. I don't have any paper coming through to me, but I do regularly make sure that I download my statements. I file them away safely. I get a real sense of what is going on, and it really helps me to plan going forward. Now, one exercise I like to do at the beginning of January or December, if I'm a little bit organized, this year it was January, is to spend some time with my statements. And already you'd be like, oh my goodness, Nikki, don't make me do it. I don't want to. No, this is not my idea of a good time. Or I just never look at them really. I don't want to. But I tell you what, this is really going to have a huge impact on your business because you're going to be part of it. You're going to be just turning that brightness up on it. So one thing I like to do is I like to pull up all my bank statements, so the 12 that have come through over the course of the year, and I like to look at the 2 columns, what came in and what went out. As simple as that. And I really try not to do this with any judgment. It can be very easy going, oh my goodness, oh, I was so skint then. Oh, I can't believe I had to pay out for that, or that was really frustrating. I try and look at the pure facts, like what came in, what was flowing, and what went out. And I try and look at it to be really grateful. I remember looking back as I did this exercise over the weekend of this huge gas and electric bill that we somehow got. And sometimes you can go, oh my goodness, that was so huge at the time. I remember it being a real surprise, like we weren't expecting a bill as high as that. And it can be really tempting to get really emotional with it. However, I want you to go the other way of going, we found the money. That was great. We paid for it. We had a warm house. It was brilliant. And try and look at it with a positive spin. Obviously, you don't have to be all kind of sunshine of rainbows and unicorns and all that kind of stuff, like it's a gas and electric bill at the end of it. But wherever you can, be grateful and live in that space of gratitude. Also check the numbers at the top. So over the course of the month, what came in and what came out. And sometimes even just checking those very basic numbers will give you that indication of A, has it been a good month? And B, is this a business that you're running? Or is it an expensive hobby? I used to really hate those questions. It used to frustrate me, and it clearly used to trigger me because I was like, oh, I have got an expensive hobby. I need to get some more bums on seats. I need to get some more digits in my bank account. But it's a really good place to start when you're looking at these things. And one thing I just really want to flag up is just because your current situation is your current situation right now, doesn't mean this is going to always be the way. It really doesn't. You're at a great time. I really believe that. I really believe great things are going to happen this year, and for everybody, for all of us. So even if you're looking back and it's just feeling a bit disappointing, or that you wish you'd done more, or you coulda, woulda, shoulda, all of that sort of stuff, know that this isn't going to be your truth forevermore. Another exercise that I do is to check in with the transactions that are really popular. So there may be those monthly ones that are always going out, like my Squarespace, for example, where I host my website or my podcast subscription. But there may be things that perhaps I pay quarterly or every so often, or when it sort of needs topping up. And it's a really good time doing this exercise to really check in and go, am I using this? Do I really get what I need from this moment? Now, it may be that it's time to draw a line under the subscription and leave it and go. I mean, for example, my mum and I, we live just down the road from each other, and we found that we were both getting a copy of Red magazine every single month. And we both just said, like, should we just get one between us? Because I can read it, you can read it. It's all groovy. We're not going to kind of be one of those people who tears things out, and so it's not going to work for the other person. And it's just those sort of moments of just kind of cleaning things up that is really going to help you move forward. Likewise, on the flip side, there have been times when I have paid for the lowest point of the lowest sort of subscription on something. And what I found is, on one hand, yes, of course, I'm saving money and I'm only making a small investment in terms of financials. However, it's therefore taking so much other time where I have to kind of almost fill in the gaps with me personally. And it's certainly getting to the stage of me being busier where I need to get things in place where things are just systematized and I don't have to think about them. So actually paying that money, paying a bit more and not having to worry about it is a great time of my efforts and my money and all that good stuff. Number 3, also just in this little section, is also thinking and noticing at which points of the year or the month were you thriving and which points were you simply surviving? It will then give you an indication of maybe how you can plan going forward. So last year, for example, or I've just kind of noticed this over the last 3 or 4 years as I've tracked it, August tends to be quite a quiet time for many of my clients. So there's not necessarily a lot of one-to-one work. However, my passive income side really tends to spike up during that time because maybe people are wanting to work on stuff. Maybe they've got a bit of an additional help, maybe grandparents around. So they might sort of sneak off and do one of my online courses or something like that. But really understanding when I'm busy and when I'm not helps me to plan and helps me to budget as well, most importantly. Another thing that I want you to do, which is number 6, is to acknowledge the great investments. I know when you go back and you look at your bank statements, for example, there may be a few transactions that make you go, oh my goodness, I still can't believe I spent that much on there. Oh my goodness, oh, that felt scary at the time. And even when you're revisiting, it somehow just feels really triggering again. But you know what? What I want you to think and what I want you to know is to be really comfortable with those great investments that you made. You're not going to progress to the places where you want to go by just staying the same. And I've had 3 clients come to me this week who potentially want to be a client. And they've said, like, I really want coaching. I'm really ready. And then as soon as I send my price list, they're like, oh, actually, I don't need coaching. I'm absolutely fine. And the interesting thing there for me is, what's the difference? What's the difference? What actually happened? Like, have you had a complete change of heart? And for the most part of it, I know that it's fear. I know that it's that fear of like, oh my goodness, that feels a bit uncomfortable. Investing in myself feels all kinds of scary. I haven't done that before. But do you know what? There's going to be loads of things in your business, in your brand that you haven't done before. But it is about really stepping up. And I know when I do make those step ups and those investments in myself, I always get the money back. I always set a new set of rules for myself, and it's all kinds of groovy. So try not to be too triggered by those, but actually celebrate that and go on, kid. I'm so proud that you actually did that. Number 7, I want you to notice when that influx of money came and try and figure out why. So maybe it's those flash sales that work. Maybe it's those closing down on a sales process that worked. Maybe you could track it back and go, oh yeah, that did really work, and that was a great month because at the beginning of the month I mapped everything out and that was really successful and I knew what I was doing and I knew that I was focused. So if you can get really clear on where those spikes are as well, it will really help you to recreate those patterns and those success stories for yourself. Okay, now for the emotional bit. Number 8, drains not to be repeated. My mum has got this cracking phrase, which are people are either a drain or a radiator. So they give you heat like a radiator, they warm you right up, or they drain your energy, they drain your money, they drain your time, your efforts, all that sort of stuff. There were a few things that I looked at and I thought, yeah, it was all right, but I'm not going to do that again. For the amount of work that I needed to do and back and forth, it really wasn't worth it. So I'm not going to repeat that thing again. Secondly, there may be some times where you just didn't negotiate hard enough. You didn't earn enough for your time in that instance. And I looked at one particular exchange I had with a client, and this was way before I sort of put my prices up. And I did the maths around what she actually paid for the session. And of course, you know, we were at Century, we were having a lovely time, and she ordered a very expensive drink, which is absolutely fine. But yet she hadn't sort of paid full whack for the session. So I don't know, it was probably all of my fault as well. And then sort of ordered some food and didn't pay for that. And then I sort of worked out and looked at the maths. And I remember doing this at the time as well and thought, yeah, adding in my time, adding in my expertise, adding in my travel, paying for the drinks, paying for the coffee, paying for the food, like I haven't come out of this very well. So it's about really seeing what those lessons were and making sure that you're being really clear every step of the way in terms of what you are available for, your boundaries and where you're not. And really, please be careful not to discount yourself too much. A friend of mine actually asked for a quote for how I kind of price up what I do the other day. And when I went back to her, I said, make sure that you've included X, Y, and Z as well. This is really important because I know it may be tempting sometimes to sort of skirt around the edges, but it is really important that we are showing up abundantly, that we feel really good about the pricing structures that we have and the way that we're operating. Number 9, really over the next week, start to notice how many of your hours are chargeable. As in, I never want you to be caught up in feeling busy, in feeling like you're doing stuff and get to the end of the week and go, I haven't made any money this week. Oh no, why is this? Or why hasn't this happened? It can be really easy, you know, especially if you're just starting out, you're doing everything, you're applying to emails, you're creating content, you're doing behind the scenes stuff, you're learning, you're trying to network and go out to places or speak to people on the phone, hustle, grind. I know what it's like, but I do want you to notice what is happening. And if you were to fill out a timesheet at the end of the week, make sure that you have some chargeable hours on. Make sure there have been sales. There have been points where people are actually paying you for being in business. I know it sounds obvious. I know that, but it's really, really important because there are so many people that I see online and they're like, I'm really having a planning day today. I'm going to schedule everything. I'm going to do everything perfect. And then the next day they're planning again, they're scheduling again. And there really has to be that point, like a seesaw where it kind of tips over to the other side and it goes into implementation and it goes into action, because that is the stuff also that is going to get you results. Of course, plan away. That's really important, but make sure that you're actioning it, that there is an output to that as well. And number 10, I want you to be really productive, and I want you to get to the stage where there is so much of your business that you just do it once and it's done. So sometimes there have been times when I've been writing a brand new page on my website, for example, like when I created my speaker one. It was that sense of like, oh my goodness, this has taken me ages. Will it be right? And sometimes when you have to do work on yourself in that way and put yourself out there, it can feel really long. It can feel all kinds of triggering. You want to procrastinate. You want to do something else, basically. You don't want to just have to put yourself out there. But I assure you, if you do it once, it's never going to be as hard the second time. So if you need to schedule a bit of time over the next couple of weeks to start to pull together those odd bits and bobs of going, oh yes, actually I have been doing a lot of speaking, but there's nowhere on my website that says it. Or I was on 4 People's podcast. I need to share that. Or things that are sort of not updated. Things like your LinkedIn profile. Check your Instagram profile. Make sure that your name is on there. Make sure your links are all really specific and up to date, and you're directing people exactly where you want to take them. All of this stuff is very important. So do it once. It will pay off, I'm sure. So that's it for today. I hope you found this useful. I would love it if you share any takeaways with me. If you want to message me privately on Instagram, everything is confidential, by the way. You're more than welcome to do that. Go to @NikkiRaby, or you can email me hello@NikkiRaby.com. I want you to have a great year this year, and I want to congratulate you for sticking with this podcast, this episode certainly, because I'm probably asking you to do some quite uncomfortable things. It's okay. It's okay. I've been through the process myself, and it will all be fine. And do you know what? Once we're informed, once we know what's going on, once we know the numbers, once we know what's working, you can do more of that. And that is a really great place to get to. I want you to spend time with your families, your friends, your loved ones, doing what you love, or doing it by yourself, just being alone, having great times, whatever it is that you love to do. I want you to do more of that. I don't want you to spend time just chasing your tail, feeling like you're not in control of things, but really feeling like you have a grip on where your business and your life are going. So I hope that's been useful for you. I look forward to hearing from you. Please share, rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you again next week. See you later. Bye. Thank you so much for listening, as always. If you do want to rate and review and subscribe over on iTunes, or even share it with a friend, I would love it. Thank you so much for your support. If you want to find out more about me and how we can work together, please go to NikkiRaby.com or connect with me across social media @NikkiRaby. I'll see you soon. Bye.